Darren Lynch, Vice President at GEP. A warm welcome to the stage for Darren, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm delighted to get the first graveyard shift, so hope you're awake. I'd like to spend probably the next 10-15 minutes talking to you a little bit about how we navigate disruption between us across the supply chain. So I'd like to give you our perspective. My role, I look after our broader supply chain and procurement practice across EMEA, so I spend most of my time living in disruption. So talk to you a little bit about how we navigate that. So let's start with just setting the scene. So over the last 2 years, we've all experienced disruption, constant disruption, right? Whether that be procurement, is to understand it, to navigate it, and figure out how to mitigate that. So let's talk a little bit about what that means and let's talk a little bit about how we address that. So constant change, constant disruption over the last number of years. So every year, new threats. Some are natural, some are man-made, some are malicious. But they're all constant. And the key word I want to just get across to you is constant. So traditional approaches aren't really good enough anymore. We've all come from it being dragged into a war room, right? Crisis management, right? Because of one or other of these things happening, right? And they're more and more frequent, right? That's not going to change. So it's no longer good enough to do that. You can't just a simple approach of into the war room, whether that was, COVID or any of the crises that has happened over the last number of years. Structurally, you need to start thinking about doing things differently, right? So I want to talk a little bit about that today. Whether it's a container getting stuck or a container getting shot at, right, fired at in the Red Sea. Whether it is a weather event or a simple computer update. You might all remember more recently, right? All these things constantly happening to us, right? So how do we address them? And address them structurally, or else it's just another firefight. So for us, I want to talk to you, introduce and talk about, and some of these things are not really new, right, to be very honest. Supply chain orchestration, right, or digital orchestration maybe, right, to use one of our more recent buzzwords, right? So thinking about how you address planning, how you have a resilient supply network or an ecosystem, right? That's what we're trying to address. So how do we do that? Again, nothing unnatural, nothing phenomenal, but the key building blocks to that are visibility, right? How do I get visibility? We're going to talk about that. Then how do you put in place proper agility, right? Have a proper agile, responsive, resilient supply chain, right? All the same type of activities. And then how do you sustain that? Okay? So let's talk a little bit about each one of those. So most of you may be familiar with the TV show, Who Do You Think You Are? Right? So how many of you in this room have the same forensic capability within your supply chain? Right? Thinking about understanding, first of all, transparency in a supply chain, right? End to end, from tier 1 to tier N, right? Whether it's a grower in a field, so do you have modern slavery acts in place? Do you have proper transparency, as an example, right? Can you identify a bottleneck? Can you see it? Can you sense it, right? Do you understand the difference in the suppliers, right? And what impacts a bottleneck will have on your production 3, 6, 9 months' time, right? Practical things, you have some visibility, maybe, but do you really have visibility? Do you understand what's important to you? So that's the first piece, and connecting all the dots. Yes, some of this is, how do we address it? So some of us are about smart contracting, good contracting, right? That you do, right? Get your suppliers to help get them to and be open and transparent. Normal forecast collaboration, those things don't change, right? But connecting up the nodes and the dots and using the tools and technology and understanding supply sensing, right? To be able to see there is a problem coming, okay? Just do you have visibility, first of all? So do you know who you are? Do you know who you're dealing with, right? Simple things. Also, don't forget future regulations, right? Whether that be in a financial services environment, whether that be in future ESG reporting environments, you need to have visibility, right? It's just more and more keeps coming, right? So how do we then, so once you get visibility, right, what do we do then? So we talk about supply chain orchestration. So on the screen, you'll see all the typical things that we've done for 20 years, 20, 30 years. Nothing new in any of these individual levers, okay? We've all tactically done them, and they help. But the challenge is that they're isolated, right? War room, crisis, let's go and do something quick, short-term planning fix, or I need to respond, so you're reacting, right? And doing them in isolation, they're siloed, right? Like most of the organizations, right? The challenges you see in your own organization, right? So the challenge is about getting proper orchestration across that, right? So proper supply chain orchestration, right? So how do you adapt the way you work to be able to facilitate getting visibility, having the control tower at the top, right? You're all working functions, we're all working particular roles, but it's the collaboration, right, up and down, left and right, between organizations and within organizations that allows you to identify and fix agility. Now, so addressing one activity. So, more recently we hear about a lot of friendshoring, we hear about China plus one, right? People are trying to find alternative sources. They're great and solved at one particular node along the supply chain, right? The trick is understanding which levers to pull and in what sequence. Yes, you'll need tooling, of course, right? And you need help. But understanding, right, how you get once you have your visibility, agility will come by pulling a number of these initiatives, pulling a number of levers and in the right sequence. So that whether that's increasing sourcing, whether that's increasing inventories, whether that's regionalizing supply bases, whether that's more proper supply sensing linked to demand sensing and integrated business planning and near and short-term planning time horizons, right? These are the things that are really important to fix, right? So there's nothing radically new, right, in individually what they do, but collectively having the capabilities and the structure, putting them in place, and yes, then you need the tools that surround them, right? And it's not happening overnight, right? So if I was to ask you, what are you doing in your organizations in terms of putting in place these structures now, I'm sure there's many mixed responses, right? Everyone's doing something, right? But what's it leading to? Is it leading to another war room? Is it leading to working capital increasing because we've ranked up the inventory and then, now I've got to sell all the inventory, right? So it's a number of consequential events that need to take place. So the key word is orchestration, supply chain orchestration, right? We hear about lots of AI and orchestration across individual transactions, but visibility and to get agility requires doing these things in sequence collaboratively. So once you've done that, how do you then sustain it? Again, small things, these aren't, rocket science, but again, are you doing things in silos or in isolation, right? So integrated business planning, right? Demand plan, supply plan, simple stuff, proper horizons, but linking that directly into supply risk monitoring and alerts, right? So that it really starts working, right? Now, add on technologies and add on machine learning, then you start to use something productive, okay? And you hear there are lots of great organizations here today and tomorrow that have technologies, right? To start to talk about that. But building in compliance at the source, how are you going to do this? Thinking about the structure that you need to then sustain it. And then wrapping around that then, continuous innovation and sustainability, right? To make the model, that's about SRM programs, right? Again, structure, operating model, roles, responsibilities, and automating it, structuring it, that you have the capabilities to sustain. Right. So, for us, what we've been doing, I spend my time out in organizations, probably like most of you in the room, right? Trying to fix some of these problems, right? Whether that be home or abroad. We as an organization, when we look at our supply chain orchestration, we look across the technologies, right? Technology plays a really important role, but it's not the only role, all right? I want to stress that, right? To be successful, you need the right solution, but you need the right operating model and roles, you need the right capabilities, the right training and development for people, right? Do you know and understand how to operate with these tools and what to do when something, shines red on your screen? How do you act, right? So training, development, as well as visibility. We talked about visibility. You're getting agility through numbers of different initiatives across your organization, and then you have the tooling that underpins a lot of it. Now, we've invested heavily in this, as many other organizations, and we're not the only one. There are multiple very good solutions out there. There can be point solutions, right? But what's really important for all of you is to try to think about what's the return on investment that you have to make it work. Because everyone has tools, right? But have you delivered your business case? What you set out to achieve, the return on investment, did it materialize, right? Most of the time in my 25, 30 years doing this, there's lots of failures, okay? And there will be more failures, right? But investing in these capabilities, putting it in place, right, will make sure that you have the combination of increased capability, visibility, and going back to the same thing, agility, right? Because disruption is continuous for us now. They're constant, right? We talked for prior discussions in the room here, talk about what's happened over the last number of years, the next wave, right? There's always another wave of disruption. Happens every day, right? Now, that's unfortunately, it's more and more relevant to what we're doing. So we need to upskill ourselves, think about what's your company strategy? We're here to support growth. So what is the right strategy, right? Bring it into supply chain strategy. How do we get agility from where we are today, right? So what's the right operating model? Who are the right partners? What part of the world do we need to be in? What are we going to do there? Are we going to do more in-house? Are we going to do co-manufacturing, right? Are we using inventories, working capitals? Are we financing those? Or using other capabilities? And it's all about linking up these nodes and using the tooling. So, if everyone is still awake, all right? Really just wanted to, I don't have much more to say. I can talk forever about this, but really that's what I just wanted to finish by saying it's a hope, first of all, that you got something out of this. It makes you think and challenge your thinking, right? Because it's our role, it's up to us to challenge, to stand up for the right business case for this. And just to say thank you for listening and happy to take any questions. So.
Thank you very much, Darren. We'll go to the room for any immediate questions. I know I have some of my own I would go with. Any hands going up? We do. Over to the side.
Thank you. That was really interesting. My name is Alexandra. I lead on sustainable procurement and supply chain for the NHS. So we have a pretty big supply chain. I just wondered about the business case you talk about developing and defending, because some of the inherent risks in here and benefits are that we will avoid disruption. Mm-hmm. And we won't actually know that we avoided that. Well, we may believe we avoided that disruption, but we won't necessarily know how bad it would have been in order to build that business case. So sometimes it's the absence of disruption that helps us build that business case. So just I wondered a little bit about what your reflections are there about building a business case around something that is kind of avoiding risk rather than actual bottom line savings.
Sure. So your industry, you talk about patient outcomes. All linked back to that, right? So, and I suppose the most material in the press, in your face issues were post-COVID, right? So it's the easiest way to link it back to it. So we are here to to make sure that patient outcomes are supported, not disrupted, right? So how do we do that? We have, first of all, the right suppliers at the right price, at the right quality, transparency, that we have protected modern slavery, for example. We have protection against sanctioned organizations or individuals. We have visibility to be able to interpret where there may be an opportunity to buy better, where the market shifts and the surplus stock. Can you also see that, right? And also, most of us don't talk about that, right? And we should, right? Because I think we're the world's worst communicators and business in business internally, like particularly around procurement people, right? You know, it's you just get on with it, get through it, right? And just everyone else takes the praise, right? But being able to build your case around that. So here's what we put in place that is going to address regulatory issues, is going to ensure compliance, it's going to ensure value for money for taxpayers, is going to ensure better patient outcomes, right? By putting in place these things. And yes, there is a cost, right, to that. But the cost of not putting it in place is the former media that I can show you, right? That you've had tribunals around, right? Right. So that's, to be honest, they're the best business cases. I don't know if that helps understand it's unique, but that's how you trace it.
Darren, thank you. Any further questions from the room? Yeah, we do. Right at the back. face. How are you?
Yeah, hello, Alex from Germany. I got a question, or I got a thought, and I want to get your response on that. It's like, one of my main concerns when we talk about resilience is what do we do to our people? So the ones who are first line in the fire trying to solve and fix the problems. Mm-hmm. So what I'm missing on your presentation is where people come in. So I understand the technology gives a lot of opportunities and maybe can, from the one or other point, describe as a savior. Mm-hmm. But in the end, it's all about people, right?
Yep.
And I would like just to hear your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, sorry, apologies if it was not clear enough. So, yeah, tools are only part of the job, right? So you need the right strategy, you need the right structure, first of all. So proper ways of working together internally, right, in simple layman's terms, right? But you also have to upskill and retrain people. So, firefighting is not productive. Right, okay? Moving away, rewarding people from firefighting is the wrong thing to do, right? We all know that. So putting in place the right roles, so capability. So for example, if I'm a category buyer and we're putting in place more subcontract manufacturing or regionalization, right? So do I know how to do that? You have to retrain, you have to reskill, right? Am I in the right job? Can I use data? Do I understand data, right? Some people love it, some people hate it, right? But you need to know, and you have to be retrained in your organization. I go back to talking about having the right structure and the right operating model, which means roles, competencies, right, and capability development. Because you're talking about a lot of relationships, right, and global relationships, right, or regional or local. So how do you have do you have proper vendor management skills? Do you have relationship-based skills, right? Do you know how to build trust? Right, and credibility internally in your organization, how you better business partner, and then how do you get value and innovation out of suppliers, right? That's all relationships, which is capability building, right? And to have things, properly sized and structured, to your point. People should not be working 24/7. There's no need when these tools, these wonderful tools, will do it all for us, right? But having the right skills, the right training and development constantly has to be, but it's not traditional procurement skills. You're moving into other skills, right? Happy to send you some ideas about it afterwards. So,
okay.
Hope that helps.
Alexander, thank you very much indeed. And you were saying, Darren, when you finished, you hope people would find it useful. I have a very scientific way of judging how useful people find a presentation, and that is the phone's outification ratio of how many people are taking pictures of your slides, and you are currently leading on that particular leaderboard today. So you can add that to your CV or whatever you so wish. But thank you so much for joining us here. Darren Lynch, Vice President at GEP.
Thank you.